The words that came out of Sarah's mouth were like venom, dripping with coldness as she stood in my kitchen, adjusting the engagement ring on her finger without even glancing up from her phone. The best gift you could give us would be if you just vanished from our lives forever. My son, Jake, didn't even bother to look up from his tablet as he nodded in agreement, scrolling through whatever was more important than his own mother. I stood there, feeling the weight of their indifference like a physical blow. But I refused to let them see me break. I had spent the last 2 years bending over backward for them, sacrificing everything I had to make their lives easier. And this was the thanks I got. Let me take you back to how we got to this moment, because it didn't happen overnight. 2 years ago, I had done something I never thought I would do. I sold my beloved lakeside cottage, the place where my late husband Tom and I had spent our happiest summers together. The memories of our laughter echoing across the water, the quiet mornings sipping coffee on the porch, the way the sunlight danced on the lake at dawn, all of it gone in an instant. But I did it without hesitation because I believed in my son and his soon-to-be wife, Sarah. I believed in their dreams. I gave them every penny from my retirement fund, $65,000, to help them buy their first home. They had promised me I would always be welcome, that I would be a part of their growing family, that I would never be alone. But promises, as I would soon learn, were just words when they came from people who only saw you as a source of money, and not as a person who deserved love and respect. And now, here we were, the night before their wedding, a wedding that I was paying for, and Sarah was telling me I was worthless. You heard her words. Jake finally spoke, but he didn't even bother to look away from his screen. Tomorrow is our big day. Your drama is making everything worse. His voice was flat, as if I were an inconvenience, a problem to be dealt with and then forgotten. My drama? I had spent the entire day running errands for them, packing wedding favors, picking up flowers from 3 different shops across town, listening to Sarah complain about the band being too loud, the cake not being fancy enough, the photographer not being artistic enough. My only crime was suggesting they didn't need both a chocolate fountain and an ice cream bar at the reception. "Where am I supposed to sleep tonight?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. Sarah shrugged, not even looking up as she painted her nails a bright, obnoxious pink. "I don't know. Maybe your friend Carol's house, or get a motel room. Honestly, Helen, I don't care where you go as long as you're not here tomorrow morning." Her words were like daggers, each one twisting deeper than the last. "This is my son's home, too," I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper, as if speaking too loudly would shatter the fragile control I had over my emotions. Jake finally put down his tablet and looked at me for the first time that evening. "Sarah handles all our money stuff now. She's the one who makes the house payments. You just helped us get started once. Once. Just once. As if $65,000 was pocket change. As if I hadn't given them every penny I had saved over decades. As if I hadn't sold the one place that held all my happiest memories just to give them a head start in life. I stood there in the living room I had helped decorate, the walls I had painted, the space where I had cooked countless meals for them over the past 2 years, and I looked around at the life they had built with my money. The big TV I had bought them for Christmas, the furniture I had helped pay for, the little touches that made their house a home, all of it bought with my sacrifices. And now, they acted like they had earned it all themselves, like I was nothing more than an afterthought, a burden they no longer needed. Something inside me shifted in that moment. It wasn't a breaking point. It was a realization, a quiet understanding that I had spent too long making myself small for people who would never appreciate what I had given up for them. "You're absolutely right," I said, my voice calm, my hands steady as I picked up my purse from the couch. "I should leave." Sarah looked up, surprised, as if she had expected me to cry, to beg, to make a scene that she could later gossip about with her friends. But I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. "I'll get my things and be gone in 30 minutes, I said, my voice firm, my resolve unshaken. Jake actually smiled, as if this were some kind of victory for him. "That's smart, Mom. We can talk after our honeymoon when things calm down." Talk after the honeymoon, as if this were some minor disagreement, as if I were the one causing unnecessary drama over something as trivial as where I would sleep for the night. I walked upstairs to the spare room, the room I had been staying in for the past 8 months, the room that was never mine, because spare things were meant to be discarded when they were no longer needed. As I packed my clothes into my old, worn suitcase, I could hear them downstairs already making plans for what they would do with the space once I was gone. Sarah wanted to turn it into her craft room. Jake thought it would be the perfect spot for his gaming setup. Neither of them seemed to care that they were discussing how to repurpose the space of the woman who had made their perfect life possible. I paused for a moment and looked at the photograph of Tom on the dresser. 41 years of marriage, and he had never once made me feel unwanted in my own home. He had loved me, respected me, cherished me, not for what I could give him, but for who I was. "Don't worry, honey," I whispered to his smiling face in the picture. "This isn't over yet." And for the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of something I hadn't felt in years: determination. I wasn't going to let them discard me like an old, unwanted piece of furniture. I was going to take back the control of my life, even if it meant burning everything down first. I carried my suitcase downstairs and placed it by the front door. Sarah and Jake were in the kitchen, laughing about something on Sarah's phone, completely oblivious to the storm I was about to bring into their lives. I walked out to my car, sitting in the driveway of the house my money had helped pay for, and I pulled out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I needed. Janet Walsh, my lawyer. She had been helping me since Tom passed away, and she had warned me more than once that this day might come. The phone rang twice before she picked up, her voice groggy with sleep. "Helen, it's almost midnight. Is everything okay? Janet, I need you to look at the paperwork from when I helped Jake and Sarah buy their house. All of it." There was a long pause on the other end of the line, the kind of pause that spoke volumes. "Did something happen with the kids?" she asked cautiously. I took a deep breath and told her everything. The cruel words Sarah had thrown at me, Jake's indifference, the way they had treated my $65,000 like it was nothing more than a minor loan they could repay whenever they felt like it. Janet listened in silence, the only sound the soft tapping of her fingers on her keyboard as she pulled up the files on her computer. "Helen," she said after a moment, "I've been worried about this situation for months. The way they've been treating your help like it's some kind of gift instead of what it really was." "What do you mean, what it really was?" I asked, my heart pounding in my chest. There was another pause, longer this time, as if she were choosing her words carefully. "Don't you remember those extra papers I made you sign? The ones I insisted on when you told me about Sarah's shopping problems?" My mind raced back to that day, the day I had gone to her office to finalize the paperwork for the house. She had slid a stack of documents across the table to me, telling me it was just a formality. Something to protect me in case things didn't work out the way we hoped. I had signed them without reading, too trusting, too naive, too desperate to believe that my son and his fiancée would ever treat me the way they were treating me now. "Janet, please tell me you protected me somehow," I whispered, my voice trembling with a mix of hope and fear. "Oh, sweetie," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. That $65,000 wasn't just a gift. Legally, it was a loan, with your name on the house papers as part owner. Sarah never signed the final agreement forms I sent. According to the law, you own 30% of that house. I almost dropped the phone. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious," she replied. "Sarah kept saying she'd sign the papers later, and you were so worried about keeping the peace that you never pushed it. But the bank has you listed as a co-owner. The house deed shows your share. It's all completely legal." I looked up at the house, at the light still on in the kitchen where Sarah and Jake were probably celebrating my departure, completely unaware that their world was about to come crashing down around them. "Janet, what would happen if I wanted to sell my part of the house?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions inside me. "Well," she said, "as a part owner, you could force them to sell the whole house. They'd have the first chance to buy your share, of course. They could pay you what it's worth now, and if they can't afford to buy you out, then the house gets sold to someone else. And everyone splits the money based on how much they own." Through the kitchen window, I could see Sarah trying on different pieces of jewelry with her wedding dress, probably taking selfies to post online, completely oblivious to the fact that her perfect life was about to unravel. "Janet, I need you to write up legal papers saying I want to sell. I want them delivered first thing Monday morning." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. "Helen, are you sure about this?" "Once we start this process." "I've never been more sure of anything in my life," I interrupted. "They want me to disappear? Fine, but I'm taking my 30% with me." I hung up the phone and sat in the darkness of my car, watching the house that my money had helped build, the house where I had been treated like an unwelcome guest in my own son's life. They had no idea what was coming. But before I drove away, I had one more call to make. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the number for Riverside Gardens Wedding Center. The phone rang twice before a cheerful voice answered. "Riverside Gardens Wedding Center. This is Kelly speaking. How can I help you?" "Hi, Kelly. This is Helen Parker. I need to talk to someone about tomorrow's wedding reception." "Oh, Mrs. Parker." Her voice brightened. "How exciting. The big day is tomorrow. How can I help?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to say. "I'm afraid there's been a change. I need to cancel the reception." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Cancel? But ma'am, the wedding is tomorrow. The flowers are arranged, the food is ready, the staff is scheduled." "I understand," I said, cutting her off gently. "And I'll pay whatever fees I need to. The thing is, I'm the one who signed the contract and paid the deposit. I believe I can make changes." I could hear the rustling of papers as she checked her records. "Let me see. Yes, the contract has your name and your credit card, but surely you want to talk to the bride and groom first." "No need," I said firmly. "I'm making a business decision." "Mrs. Parker, this seems like something the happy couple should know about." I glanced back at the house, where Sarah was still laughing, still posting, still completely unaware of the chaos I was about to unleash on her perfect day. The happy couple made it very clear that they don't want me involved in their lives anymore. So I'm just doing what they asked. 20 minutes later, I was checked into the Comfort Inn downtown, sitting on the edge of the bed with a slice of pizza I had ordered from room service, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, the quiet satisfaction of taking control of my own life. My phone started ringing at 12:23 a.m. I didn't recognize the number, but I knew who it was before I even answered. "What did you do?" Sarah's voice was so loud, so furious, that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "I did exactly what you asked," I said calmly, turning down the volume on the TV in my hotel room. "You wanted me to disappear, so I disappeared. The wedding center called. They said you canceled our reception." "Our wedding reception?" She shrieked. "Helen, there are 150 people expecting dinner tomorrow." "I'm sure there are," I replied, my voice steady. "That sounds like your problem now." Jake grabbed the phone from her, his voice panicked. "Mom, this is crazy. You can't just cancel our wedding because you're mad about where you sleep." "I didn't cancel your wedding, sweetie," I said, my voice calm, my resolve unshaken. "You can still get married tomorrow. I just canceled the party I was paying for. You know, the one that cost me $18,000. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I had never told them how much the reception cost. I had always brushed it off whenever they asked, saying, "Don't worry about money." But now the truth was out there, hanging between us like an unspoken accusation. 18,000? Sarah's voice was small, shocked, as if she were hearing the number for the first time. "Yes," I said. "The reception, the photographer, the flowers, the DJ. Did you think it was all free? Did you think money just magically appeared because you wanted a fairy tale wedding? But we can't tell 150 people there's no dinner." Jake's voice was desperate, pleading. "You're smart people," I said. "I'm sure you'll think of something. Pizza places deliver." I could hear Sarah crying in the background, the kind of loud, ugly sobs that used to make me rush to her side with comfort and reassurance. But not anymore. Now they just sounded like the tantrums of a spoiled child who wasn't getting her way. "How could you do this to us?" she wailed. "We trusted you." "You trusted me?" I said, my voice cold. "You told me to vanish from your family forever. I'm just following your instructions." "I didn't mean permanently," she sobbed. "I just meant for tonight." "Oh, I see," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "So when you said forever, you actually meant for a few hours." "My mistake." Jake tried to intervene, his voice softer now, almost pleading. "Mom, please. We can work this out like grown-ups. Come back home and let's fix this. The home where I'm not welcome? I said. The home where my presence ruins everything? I don't think so. Where are you even staying? Sarah demanded, her voice still thick with tears. That's not your business anymore, is it? I said. You made it clear that my living situation is my problem to solve. I could hear frantic whispering in the background, the two of them probably trying to figure out how to salvage the mess they had created. Can you at least call the wedding center back? Jake begged. Maybe if you explain it was all a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, I said firmly. It was a clear business decision made by the person paying for everything. But what about our guests? Jake's voice was desperate now. What about Sarah's parents flying in from Texas? What about them? I said. You're still getting married tomorrow. They can still watch that happen. They just won't get a free meal afterward. You're being mean and spiteful. Sarah's voice was shrill, accusing. No, honey, I said, my voice calm. Mean and spiteful was telling the woman paying for your dream wedding to disappear forever. I'm just being smart with my money. This will destroy everything, she cried. Everyone will think we're poor. I let that hang in the air for a moment, watching as the realization dawned on them through the phone. Well, now that you mention it, I said, my voice steady. Without my money, you probably will be poor pretty soon. What do you mean? Jake's voice was shaky now, the first hints of fear creeping in. I mean, have you looked at your monthly bills lately? I asked. Do you know how much money goes out versus how much comes in? There was more frantic whispering on the other end of the line, the two of them probably scrambling to make sense of their finances for the first time in years. Because I've been helping with your expenses in ways you probably haven't noticed, I continued. The grocery money I give Sarah when we shop together. The electric bill I pay online when you're short. The car repairs. The doctor visits. The little emergencies that keep happening. Those were gifts, right, Sarah? Were they? I said, not waiting for an answer. Because from where I sit, they look like an allowance. And allowances can be stopped anytime. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Finally, Jake spoke, his voice small. What do you want from me, Mom? Now, that was interesting. An hour ago, they couldn't wait to get rid of me. Now they wanted to make a deal. I want exactly what you offered me, I said. To disappear from your family forever, and I want to take my money with me when I go. I hung up the phone and turned off the ringer, knowing that the calls and texts would start pouring in soon. But for now, I wanted to enjoy the quiet, the peace of knowing that for the first time in years, I was finally putting myself first. By Sunday morning, my phone had 42 missed calls and 38 text messages. I ignored them all, sitting in the hotel restaurant, eating pancakes and reading the newspaper like a normal person. The wedding was supposed to start at 3 p.m. At 10 a.m., there was a knock on my hotel room door. I looked through the peephole and saw Jake standing there, his wedding shirt wrinkled, his face pale with exhaustion. Mom, please, he said when I opened the door. We need to talk. I didn't let him in. Shouldn't you be getting ready for your special day? I asked, my voice calm. That's what I need to talk about, he said, his voice desperate. Sarah's having a meltdown. She's locked in the bathroom crying. Her mom is threatening to go back to Texas. Everything is falling apart. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. I hope you figure it out. Figure it out? He said, his voice rising. Mom, you ruined our wedding. No, son, I said. I took away my money from your wedding. There's a difference. He pushed past me into the room and I let him. Sometimes you have to let people show you who they really are. This is insane, he said, his voice shaking. Over what? A fight about sleeping arrangements? I stayed standing, looking down at my 35-year-old son, who was finally learning that actions have consequences. This isn't about sleeping arrangements, I said. This is about respect. This is about being grateful. This is about treating the person who made your life possible like she matters. We always treated you good, he said, his voice defensive. Did you? I asked. When's the last time you asked about my day? My health? My feelings? When's the last time you invited me somewhere because you wanted me there, not because you needed my help? He opened his mouth, then closed it, unable to answer. I'll wait, I said. The silence between us was heavy, uncomfortable. When's the last time you called just to chat? I asked. When's the last time you remembered my birthday without your phone reminding you? When's the last time you treated me like your mom instead of your personal bank? That's not fair, he said, his voice rising. Isn't it, Jake? I said. In the last year, how much money have I given you and Sarah? I don't know, he said. A few thousand for emergencies. $43,000, I said. His face turned white. $43,000 in emergencies and little helps. Plus the $65,000 for the house. That's $108,000, Jake. More than most people make in 3 years. Were you ever going to pay me back? Because Sarah just bought a new purse that cost $800. You just got that expensive watch. Neither of you mentioned paying me back even once. He put his head in his hands, his shoulders shaking. What do you want from me, Mom? So you're punishing us by destroying our wedding? He said, his voice cold. The way he said it, as if my protecting myself was some kind of cruel punishment, told me everything I needed to know. No, Jake, I said. I'm protecting myself by stopping you from using me. Using you? He said, his voice rising. That's ridiculous. Is it? I said. You've taught me that my only value is money. You've made me feel guilty for having needs while you take everything I give for granted. You've made me feel like I don't matter unless I'm writing checks. I sat down across from him, forcing him to look at me. Yesterday, Sarah told me the best gift I could give was to disappear forever. And you agreed. After everything I've done, everything I've given up, you agreed that I should vanish. She didn't mean it, he said, his voice desperate. Yes, she did, I said. And so did you. And you know what? You're going to get exactly what you asked for. He looked up at me, his eyes wide with fear. What does that mean? I smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It means you better learn to pay your own bills. It means you better hope Sarah's parents feel generous. And it means you better start looking at apartments, because the house situation is about to get very messy. What are you talking about? He asked, his voice shaking. I'm talking about the legal papers you never read when I helped with that house down payment, I said. The ones that make me a part owner of your house. All the color drained from his face. That's right, honey, I said. I own 30% of your house and I'm putting it up for sale. Jake stared at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. You can't own part of our house, he said. We bought it. We live there. Yes, I said. Did you think that money just disappeared? You said it was a gift? You said you wanted to help us, he said, his voice rising. I pulled out my phone and showed him the email from Janet. Apparently, my lawyer had different ideas about protecting my investment, I said. Would you like me to read the legal documents? This can't be right, he said, his voice panicked. Sarah would have signed something. Sarah was supposed to sign something, I said. She kept forgetting. Janet kept the papers anyway. Jake was shaking now. Whether from anger or fear, I couldn't tell. You planned this, he said. You've been planning this whole thing. Oh, sweetheart, I said. If I'd been planning this, don't you think I would have stopped before spending $18,000 on your wedding? The truth of that seemed to hit him like a punch to the gut. I had spent thousands on a wedding for people who had told me to disappear. If I had been scheming, I would have stopped months ago. So what happens now? He asked, his voice small, scared. Now you have a choice, I said. You can buy my 30% share at what the house is worth today, or we sell the house and split the money. We can't afford to buy you out, he said, his voice desperate. The house is worth $280,000 now. 30% of that is $84,000. I know, I said. I'm good with numbers. That's why I have money and you don't. He winced as if I had slapped him. We're not broke, he said. We just have expenses. Jake, I said, you and Sarah make $7,200 a month together. Your house payment alone is $2,100. Add car payments, credit cards, utilities, food, and Sarah's shopping. You spend more than you make every month. How do you know all that? He asked, his voice shaking. Because I've been covering the difference for 2 years, I said. Did you think the money fairy was paying your bills? The hotel room phone rang. I answered it while Jake sat there, the reality of his situation finally sinking in. Mrs. Parker, this is Kelly from Riverside Gardens, the voice on the other end said. I have the bride's mother on the other line. She wants to pay for today's reception if you'll let us proceed. I looked at Jake, who was listening with desperate hope. That's very kind of her, Kelly, I said, but that won't work. Mom, please, Jake begged. I held up a hand to stop him. You see, Kelly, I said, there are family issues that make it wrong for me to let other people pay for an event I chose to cancel. I understand, Kelly said. Should I tell Mrs. Rodriguez that the cancellation stays? Yes, please, I said. And Kelly, send my final bill to this hotel. I'll pay for any trouble I caused. After I hung up, I turned back to Jake. Sarah's mom was going to pay $18,000 to save your reception, I said. She's been planning this wedding for months. She invited all her friends. How nice for her. Too bad her daughter couldn't be nice to the person originally paying for everything. Jake pulled out his phone, his hands shaking. I need to call Sarah, he said. We need to figure out what to do about the house. Go ahead, I said. But Jake, when you tell your wife about our new situation, make sure she understands something. He looked up at me, his eyes wide. I'm not the same woman who left your house last night, I said. That woman was desperate to keep peace at any cost. This woman is done being used. You're really going to force us to sell our home? He asked, his voice shaking. I'm going to use my legal rights as a part owner, I said. What you do about that is up to you. He left without saying goodbye, probably to deliver the worst news of Sarah's life on what was supposed to be her wedding day. 15 minutes later, my phone rang again. It was Sarah. Helen, she said, her voice thick with tears. We need to talk. No, sweetie, I said. We really don't. You made it very clear yesterday that talking to me wasn't something you wanted to do. I was stressed, she sobbed. I was worried about the wedding. I didn't mean what I said. Of course you were stressed, I said. It must be hard pretending to like someone you obviously can't stand. I don't hate you, Helen, she cried. In the 2 years since you moved into the house I helped buy, you've never once said thank you. Not once. You've never asked about my life, my hobbies, my health. You've never invited me anywhere unless you needed me to babysit or cook or pay for something. That's not true, she said, her voice desperate. When's the last time you called just to see how I was? I asked. Silence. Never, I said. You've never called just to check on me. But I'm Jake's mom. I'm family. Yesterday you told me the best gift I could give was to disappear forever, I said. Today you're saying I'm family. Which is it, Sarah? More crying. The kind of desperate sobbing that used to make me rush to her side with comfort. Now it just sounded like the tantrum of a child who wasn't getting her way. Helen, please, she begged. I'll do anything. I'll say sorry in front of everyone. I'll pay you back. Pay me back with what money? I asked. You don't have a job, remember? You're a stay-at-home wife in a house you couldn't afford without my help. I'll get a job, she said, her voice desperate. That's a wonderful idea, I said. You should definitely do that. But it doesn't change what's happening with the house. What if we promise to pay back everything, all the money you've given us? She asked, her voice small. I almost laughed. Sarah, honey, you owe me $108,000. At minimum wage, it would take you about 8 years to earn that much. And that's if you never spent money on anything else. The silence that followed was the sound of reality finally hitting her. By 5 p.m., they had called 19 more times. I answered exactly 0 of them. Instead, I was sitting in the hotel restaurant, enjoying a quiet dinner and watching the local news coverage of a wedding disaster at Riverside Gardens. The reporter didn't say names, but the video of Sarah in her wedding dress, crying on the steps, was pretty obvious. Excuse me, aren't you Helen Parker? I looked up to see a woman around my age with silver hair and worried eyes. She looked familiar. I'm sorry, do I know you? I asked. Maria Rodriguez, she said. Sarah's mother. She pointed to the empty chair across from me. May I sit? This should be interesting. Maria sat down gracefully, like someone used to handling family crises with dignity. I wanted to thank you, she said. That wasn't what I expected. Thank me? I asked. For showing my daughter who she really is, she said. The waitress came and Maria ordered coffee. I waited, curious about where this was going. I've been worried about Sarah for years, she continued. The selfishness, the way she treats people like servants, the complete lack of gratitude for anything. I kept hoping marriage would help her grow up, and now I've seen how she treats the woman who made her dream life possible. And I'm ashamed. Maria's coffee arrived. She stirred it slowly before continuing. I offered to pay for the reception, not because I support Sarah's behavior, but because I felt bad for the 150 guests who got hurt by this mess, she said. But you were right to say no. Was I? I asked. My daughter needed to face consequences for her actions, she said. Real consequences. The kind that can't be fixed with mommy and daddy's money. I studied Maria carefully. There was something refreshing about her honesty. She called me crying about the house situation, Maria continued, demanding that I give them money to buy your share. And I told her absolutely not. That's a lot of money to refuse. Money Sarah hasn't earned and doesn't deserve. Helen, I want you to know that whatever you decide about the house, I support you. Even if it means they lose their home, especially then. Maybe having to start over will teach Sarah what work and gratitude actually mean. After Maria left, I sat alone, thinking. For 2 years, I had been enabling Sarah's bad behavior, just like her parents had. Every time I paid their bills, I taught them that someone would always catch them when they fell. The question was, what kind of lesson did I want them to learn? Now, my phone buzzed with a text from Jake. Mom, we got approved for a loan that would cover $50,000 toward buying you out. Can we meet to talk about paying the rest later? I stared at the message for a long time. They were trying, which was more than they'd done in years. But taking on more debt wasn't the same as learning responsibility. I typed back, we can talk, but I want to see your complete budget and a realistic plan for paying off all your debts, not just mine. His response came right away. Anything you want. Mom, we just want to fix this. For the first time since this started, that sounded like progress. The budget meeting was eye-opening in the worst way. Jake and Sarah spread their financial papers across Janet's conference table like evidence of a crime, which in a way they were. Okay, I said, looking at their monthly expenses. You spend $350 a month eating out. We both work long days, Sarah said defensively. Sometimes we're too tired to cook. You don't work, Sarah, I said. I moved down the list. $250 a month on Sarah's clothes budget. I need to look nice for social events. What social events? You don't have a job. $180 on cable and streaming services you barely use. $120 on Sarah's gym membership that you use maybe once a month. $700 a month in credit card payments for what looks like shopping and vacation debt. Jake was adding numbers on his phone. Mom, I know it looks bad, he said. It looks like you're living a lifestyle that needs about $10,000 a month when you only make $7,200, I said. But with the loan, we could pay off the credit cards and lower our monthly bills, Sarah said hopefully. I looked at Janet, who was taking notes quietly. Sarah, you'd be borrowing against the house to pay credit card debt, I said. What happens when you max out the cards again? We won't, she said. We've learned our lesson. Have you? I asked. Because I don't see any real changes in this budget. You're still eating out constantly, still keeping expensive memberships you don't use, still treating shopping like a hobby. Jake leaned forward. What would you want to see, Mom? He asked. What would prove we're serious about changing? Finally, the right question. I want a budget based on your actual income, I said. I want you cooking at home, canceling subscriptions you don't need, and Sarah getting a job. A job? Sarah looked horrified. Yes, a job, I said. You're 32 years old with a college degree. There's no reason you can't help pay the bills. But Jake makes good money, she said. Not good enough, apparently, since you've been using my money for 2 years, I said. Janet cleared her throat. Helen, what exactly are you offering? She asked. I had been thinking about this for days. Here's my deal, I said. You can buy my share for $60,000 instead of the full $84,000. But there are rules. They both perked up. First, Sarah gets a job within 90 days and keeps it for at least 18 months. Second, you sell one car and use the money to pay down debt. Third, you follow a realistic budget with no eating out, no unnecessary shopping, and no new debt for 18 months. How would you check on that? Jake asked. Monthly meetings with Janet, I said. You show bank statements, credit reports, and pay stubs. If you break any rule, the full amount is due immediately. Sarah was shaking her head. That's like being in money jail. she said. No, Sarah, I said. That's called being responsible for your choices. They asked for time to talk privately. While they whispered in the hallway, Janet turned to me. This is either very kind or very harsh, she said. I can't decide which. Maybe it's both, I said. When they came back, Jake spoke for them. We accept your terms. All of them. All of them? I asked. Yes, all of them, Sarah confirmed, though she looked like she was swallowing medicine. Janet started writing up the agreement. I'll need this notarized and filed with the county office, she said. As we signed the paperwork, I watched my son and daughter-in-law sign away their financial freedom for the next year and a half. Part of me felt victorious. Part of me felt sad it had come to this. But mostly, I felt like I was finally teaching them a lesson their parents should have taught them long ago. Actions have consequences, and family isn't a free pass to treat people badly. 8 months later, I was sitting in my new condo, a beautiful 2-bedroom place I had bought with the money from selling my share of the house, when my phone rang. It was Sarah. Helen, I want to thank you, she said. For what? I asked. For making me grow up, she said. Having to work for money instead of just asking for it. Realizing how hard it is to save even $50 when you're paying your own bills. Understanding what you gave up to help us. And Jake? I asked. How is he doing? He's getting better, she said. He still thinks you were too tough, but he admits we needed to change. Through my window, I could see other residents working in the community garden. I'd signed up to help plant tomatoes next week. How are things between you two? I asked. Better, actually, she said. We talk more now that we're not constantly worried about money. We cook together. We take walks instead of going shopping. It's nice. I'm glad, I said. Helen, would you like to come for dinner sometime? She asked. Nothing fancy, just homemade tacos and maybe some talking that isn't about money. I thought about it. The old Helen would have said yes immediately, desperate to fix the relationship. The new Helen had learned to protect herself. I'd like that, I said. But let's start with lunch at a restaurant. Small steps. Of course, she said. Whatever makes you comfortable. 6 months after that, Jake and Sarah invited me for Thanksgiving dinner at their house. The first holiday invitation that wasn't about needing my help with cooking or paying for groceries. Sarah had made the entire meal herself, and Jake had cleaned the house without being asked. We sat around the table they'd bought with Sarah's promotion bonus, eating food they'd paid for with their own money. Mom, Jake said as we were clearing dishes, I want to say something. I braced myself, not sure what was coming. I'm sorry it took us so long to appreciate you, he said. And I'm sorry it took almost losing you for us to grow up. Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. Helen, you saved our marriage by forcing us to learn how to be partners instead of just roommates who shared bills, she said. You saved our future by making us face reality. I looked around the house that was truly theirs now, modest but comfortable, filled with things they'd worked for and earned. I'm proud of both of you, I said, and I meant it. It takes courage to change your whole life. We had a good teacher, Sarah said with a smile, even if her teaching methods were a little extreme. We all laughed, and for the first time in years, it felt like a real family gathering. Not because I was funding it, but because we all wanted to be there. Later that evening, as I was getting ready to leave, Sarah pulled me aside. Helen, there's something else I want to tell you, she said. What's that, honey? I asked. We're pregnant, she said. My heart leaped. Oh, Sarah, that's wonderful news. We wanted to tell you first because... She paused, looking emotional. Because we want this baby to know their grandmother as the strong, wise woman she is. Not just as someone who gives money, she said. We want to raise our child the way you raised Jake, with love, but also with boundaries and consequences. Jake added, joining us. We want them to understand that family means supporting each other, not using each other. I hugged them both, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, genuine hope for our family's future. 9 months later, I was holding my granddaughter, Emma, in the nursery that Jake and Sarah had painted themselves with money they'd saved from their combined salaries. She was perfect. 10 tiny fingers, 10 tiny toes, and the most beautiful smile I'd ever seen. She looks like you, Mom, Jake said softly, sitting beside me. Lucky girl, Sarah added with a grin. She'll have your strength. As I rocked Emma to sleep, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The pain, the tears, the hard lessons learned by all of us. 2 years ago, if someone had told me that the worst day of my life would lead to the best relationships of my life, I wouldn't have believed them. But here I was, surrounded by a family that had learned to value me for who I was, not what I could give them. Jake and Sarah had learned to stand on their own feet. I had learned to set boundaries and demand respect. And baby Emma would grow up in a home where love came with responsibility, where family meant partnership, not exploitation. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the gift of consequences. Sometimes saying no is the most loving thing you can do. And sometimes disappearing from someone's life is the only way to make them realize how much you actually meant to them. The old Helen would have stayed, would have continued enabling their bad behavior out of fear of losing them. The new Helen had learned that real love sometimes requires letting people fall so they can learn to pick themselves up. Emma stirred in my arms, opening her eyes and looking right at me. At that moment, I made her a promise. I'll always love you, little one, but I'll also teach you to be strong, to be grateful, and to understand that the best things in life are earned, not given. Jake smiled. That sounds like the grandmother I want her to have. That sounds like the mother I should have been from the beginning, I replied. You were always a good mother, Mom, Jake said. You just learned to be stronger one. As the sun set outside the nursery window, I reflected on how much had changed. My little hotel room had become a beautiful condo. I had lunch plans with my hiking group, dinner plans with Robert, a man I'd met at book club, and weekend plans to babysit Emma while Jake and Sarah went on their first date night in months. A date they were paying for themselves. My phone buzzed with a text from Sarah. Thank you for dinner tonight. Thank you for everything. I love you. I smiled and texted back, I love you too. Sweet dreams. But this time, those words meant something different than they used to. This time, they came from a place of mutual respect and genuine affection, not obligation and guilt. Sometimes, love means holding on tight. Sometimes it means letting go. And sometimes it means disappearing completely, so that when you come back, you're not just tolerated, you're treasured. As I drove home that night, I passed by Riverside Gardens, where Sarah and Jake's original wedding reception was supposed to have been held. For a moment, I imagined that other timeline, the one where I'd stayed quiet, kept paying their bills, and accepted being treated like a second-class citizen in my own family. In that timeline, I'd probably still be sleeping in their spare room, watching them make the same mistakes over and over, enabling their irresponsibility while slowly losing myself. Instead, I was driving to my own beautiful home, where I was valued and respected. Tomorrow, I had lunch plans with my hiking group, dinner plans with Robert, and weekend plans to babysit Emma, while Jake and Sarah went on their first date night in months, a date they were paying for themselves. The greatest gift I'd given them wasn't my money. It was the opportunity to become people worthy of my love. And the greatest gift they'd given me was proving that they could rise to the challenge. Sometimes love means holding on tight. Sometimes it means letting go. And sometimes it means disappearing completely, so that when you come back, you're not just tolerated, you're treasured. Thanks for listening to my story. If it helped you, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. And remember, you are worth more than what you can give others. You are worthy of love that doesn't cost you your dignity. Until next time, this is your friend Helen, reminding you that sometimes the only way to save a relationship is to be willing to lose it.